Trump is the sort of man who doesn't bear grudges.
You meant up here then.
Did you?
To each and every one of us for being here today. Look around this crowd. Look at each other. We are young, we are old, we are black, we are white, we're disabled, we're LGBT, we're the whole wonderful mosaic of diversity and inclusion that we represent on this demonstration today. We are the living embodiment of what it takes. I hope there can be a conversation. I am not, absolutely not, refusing to meet anybody. I want to be able to have that dialogue to bring about the better and more peaceful world that we all want to live in. But I'm very disappointed, particularly today on the wonderful festival of Eid, that our Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, has been attacked in the way that he has. I'm proud that our city has a Muslim mayor, that we can chase down Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, any form of racism within our society, because racism divides. Exploitation of minorities divides. Exploitation of minorities brings about hatred, dislike, disdain, and a horrible place for individuals to live in. When you've created that sense of hate, when you've destroyed people's self-esteem by those forms of racism, do you know what? You haven't built a house, you haven't built a school, you haven't trained a nurse, you haven't defended our natural world. All you've done is created a greater sense of hate and hatred that goes with it. So we as a community and people have to work together to bring about that different world. We're in the midst of a debate about the future of our relationship between Britain and Europe and the rest of the world. The basis of that debate should surely be that we encourage the protection of jobs and living standards and public services and reach out to people all across the world. But it should not be a debate about how we go forward with no deal at the same time as offering up our precious, wonderful National Health Service to private American companies to come in and take it over. We will not stand for that. We will fight with every last breath of our body to defend the principle of a healthcare system free at the point of need for everybody as a human right. In the same way, many colleagues from my party, my shadow cabinet and parliamentary group that are here today are proud to put forward the same principle for an education system based on the right to learn and the right to know, not the ability to be able to buy it from somebody else. It is about the kind of world we want to live in. There is a refugee crisis around the world. There are 65 million people across the globe who have no place to call their own as home. They're living as internal exiles in some countries, they're living in refugee camps, or they're undertaking perilous journeys to try to reach a place of safety. 65 million is more than at any time in recorded history there have been displaced people on this globe. Can we stop treating people who travel for a place of safety, escape from oppression, from climate change-induced degradation or economic poverty to try to make their contribution to the world? Don't treat them as enemies, treat them as fellow human beings and citizens of this planet who deserve our support, our sympathy and our understanding. but recognise, as many of us did when we marched in 2003 in Hyde Park, that going to war has consequences. Consequences for the soldiers who die, who we remember this week from the commemoration of what happened on D-Day. The consequences live on in the disability, the mental health stress, the dislocation, and the flows of desperate refugees. The wars in Afghanistan and Iraq and Syria are feeding this desperate refugee flow. I want to work with every government across the planet to bring about a peaceful world where we don't solve our problems by going to war. We solve our problems by an understanding of history and how those conflicts came about. That is the intelligent message of peace that I believe we're giving here today in this marvellous demonstration here in Whitehall. And there's one other thing I want to say, and it's this. 3 weeks ago in Parliament, it was my privilege and pride to introduce, sadly, a very necessary resolution. A resolution that the British Parliament should declare there is a climate and environmental emergency across the whole planet. I'm proud to say that it was not opposed, therefore it was carried, and that is the decision of the British Parliament. But passing a motion like that is only part of it. If we are to protect the natural world and environment on which we all depend, then actions have to be taken. A world dedicated to personal profit and greed, to mass exploitation and the most intensive forms of farming destroys the natural world bit by bit by bit that we all rely on. 60% of wildlife has been lost in this country in the past 40 years, and it's getting faster and getting worse. The problems are galloping all around the world. The Paris Climate Change Accord was the product not just of the brilliance of some of the people that were there negotiating it, but in reality, it was the product of decades and decades of environmental campaigners pointing out there have to be limits to how much you destroy the planet. Never forget, protest and activism eventually leads to change. And so, I want to live in a world that survives. I want to live in a world that thrives. You do that by respecting the natural world. You do that by respecting each other. You do that by recognizing that we learn from each other's history. So I say to our visitors that have arrived this week, think on, please, about a world that is one of peace and disarmament, is one of recognizing the values of all people, is a world that defeats racism, defeats misogyny, defeats the religious hatreds that are being fueled by the far right in politics, in Britain, in Europe and the United States. They have no answers to young people growing up worried about their future. No answers to communities that have lost their industries. No answers for the people that are desperate in all parts of the world to get somewhere to live. No answers to those people that are desperate to get the medical help and support that they need. No answers to those going through a mental health crisis of any sort all over the world. Do you know what? Together we can make a big difference. Together we can change this world. Together we can bring about that peace and justice. And by our demonstration here today, we've shown just how determined we, all of us, are to achieve that better place and that better world. Thank you for being here today for peace, for justice and disarmament.
Tub thumping at the